Saturday, July 7th, 2018, Monaco 64, home of alternative economics and contrarian views. So before I start out today, I'd like to say it's Billy's 10th birthday today, July the 7th. We got him, I think, in September 2008 at the height of the credit crunch, credit bubble, collapse, whatever you want to call it. He was the last puppy left with the breeder. The breeder really didn't want to let him go, but his bills were racking up, you know, keeping puppies. And luckily we were able to get him. And he's been with us ever since, of course. This morning I want to talk about an interview I just listened to on King World News. I'll put a link to it below in the description. And it's with Andrew Maguire, who Eric King calls a legendary whistleblower. Andrew Maguire knows what he's talking about. He works in the FX market in London. He trades gold. And I recommend this interview because he explains exactly how gold is traded. Most people think it's just traded on COMEX and that it's a commodity. A bit like, what's his name, Harry Dent. Harry Dent doesn't realize that gold is actually traded as a foreign exchange pair. And I always remember when I started out in the late 80s in Switzerland, had a small private bank or fund manager. The dealer for the firm, there was only one guy doing the deals. My bosses, they put the positions on for the clients. Well, they decided the positions and then they wrote down the orders and took it to the dealer in the dealing room, and he would call the brokers, the bankers, and we did a lot of foreign exchange. We had a lot of foreign exchange positions, and a small position was $1 million. You know, like I want to buy $1 million mark. At the time, it was the Deutsche Mark. I want to buy $5 million mark. I want to sell $5 million mark. And so we had these positions for clients. And of course, you didn't have to deposit the 5 million or the million. It was all done on margin. And the dealer, always, I won't say his name, of course, but he always kept, he was a really nice guy. He used to be a dollar mark trader for one of the big Swiss banks prior to coming to work with the firm I worked at. And he always kept this page up. It's called if you type on Reuters at the time, I remember FX. That's the page that came up, the black page here on this screen. And I'll explain to you what it is. So it says, page, Reuters spot rates. So these are the spot foreign exchange rates. And spot in foreign exchange is usually 2-day settlement. Okay? So what have we got here? We got Euro, EUR, and then we got ASAN. That's the name of the bank. That's the mnemonic for the bank. It's called ASAN Pacific Bank. And they're quoting in Moscow, MOW, right? And that's the rate, 1.0786 bid, 1.0787 offered. That's what they're quoting for euro, right? And then on the right hand side, it gives you the high and the low for that day in the currency. And then you got the sterling, GBP. And I remember at the time when it started, you didn't have the euro. You had DEM, which was Deutsche Mark. That was the top pair, really. And then you had GBP, CHF, which is the Swiss franc, JPY. You used to have FFR for the French franc. You got Aussie dollar, Canadian dollar. So all the major currency pairs against the dollar, right? So, and then I always, right away, I noticed when this guy was showing me, the FX page. I started out in the back office, so a lot of the deals that he used to make, I used to go and get, and my colleagues, we used to go get the confirmations from him and then input it in the system and make sure that eventually we got the confirmations from the banks that we dealt with and confirm all the trades, the prices. That's how it was done. But he used to also explain to us how he used to deal with the banks. And eventually, at one point, because I used to get to the office early because I live quite close to the office. I remember at one point a client called and no one was around, and I was given permission by my bosses to actually call the bank in Geneva that we dealt foreign exchange with. And the first time I dealt with the guy who I knew because I used to speak to him sometimes, I said, oh, I need a price in dollar mark. And he actually made me a choice price. So what is a choice price? Well, the bid and offer were the same. So that was really nice of him. That's how it used to work. But what I noticed was below here, I asked my colleague, so what's XAU or XAG? And he explained to me, well, that's gold. And that's XAU is gold and XAG is silver. And I said, wow, will you trade that as a foreign exchange? And he said, yes. And we also had positions in gold for our clients as foreign exchange positions. So there you go. It's still traded there as a currency pair against the dollar, XAU. So EBS, that's the bank that's making the quote. I'm not sure what bank that is. 1250.186 bid, 1250.263 offered. Silver as well, 1813 bid. They've got a choice market there, and 1813 bid at 1818 offered. And I remember the dealer at my firm, he used to always talk about the gold-silver spread. You know, that's something that people trade a lot. So in the foreign exchange market. But back then, I wasn't into the, I didn't really realize what gold meant to the system. I didn't realize that they were trading gold just as leveraged as they do the other currencies. And that's what Andrew Maguire explains quite well, that gold and silver are traded as currencies. And the bullion banks are the same banks that deal in the major foreign exchange pairs, and they treat it as a currency. In London, London is the heart of the foreign exchange market in the world. It's not New York. There are more American banks in London than there are American banks in New York. There's banks from all over the world here, and the foreign exchange market is London, really. No, New York is fairly important as well, but London is it. And that's why in London there's no rules on hypothecation. You can leverage as much as you want. So I remember a few years ago dealing with a bank in Switzerland, an American bank, for a client. We had a gold position, and I told the bank, oh, we want to take delivery of the gold. And they said, oh, we can't do that. And I said, why not? It's the client's gold. They said, oh, no, it's only FX gold. And they even said, oh, why would you want it anyway? Why would you want to take the gold? They take the delivery. I said, well, because it's the client's gold. Eventually, we just closed the position, and we went to another bank, a Swiss bank, where you could take delivery of the gold bars. So that's how it works. And Andrew Maguire, in his interview, is talking about how some of his major clients who have accounts with major Swiss and major German banks, he doesn't say the name. I would assume the German bank would be either Deutsche Bank or Commerzbank, one of those two. The Swiss banks is very easy to assume that's either Credit Suisse or UBS, right? They're recently, in the last few months, apparently they're putting limits on cash withdrawals and these are for big wealthy clients or institutions. They're not allowing clients to take more than 100 to 200,000 euros cash from the bank. And he talks about how one of his big clients try to take delivery, take half a ton of gold, which is 500 kilos, which is quite a lot. Try to take it physically out of a German bank, and they said no. And so why did they say no? Well, because they don't really have the physical. They have the FX gold, or unallocated. And they should be able to give you the physical gold if you've taken that position. So what am I trying to say here? Well, it looks like the wholesale market is starting to get very tight. I highly recommend this interview, and Andrew Maguire says that it's getting really, really tight, and what will happen maybe is that they're going to have to let the paper price go up. They might do cash settlement for some of these big institutional wholesale accounts. So I think we could be near some kind of event, not really huge event, but I think we could be ready to bounce back up in the gold price. But it just goes to show you that, and that's coming from him as well, Andrew Maguire, that there is huge physical demand in the wholesale market. And by wholesale market, I mean high net worth individuals that are worth millions and millions, sovereign accounts like for central banks and for countries. They're starting to try to get the gold out of what Andrew Maguire calls it the legacy system. The legacy system is the LBMA bullion banks, and these include the major American banks, major British banks, major Swiss banks that deal in this market. And it just goes to show that yeah, they're desperate, and it's probably one of the reasons why we've seen so much manipulation in the last month in the paper price, because they're trying to discourage these big institutional or wholesale accounts from taking the physical out. But I don't think it will stop. And yeah, that's why even us minions should realize that if you don't have it, if you don't hold it, it's not yours. And even for cash, even if you have fiat money in the bank, be it 5,000 pounds, $5,000, or 100,000 or 200,000, they make it very hard now for you to withdraw that cash or even to transfer it. They're going to ask you a lot of questions. So yeah, if you already have your physical gold and silver, hold on to it. Don't get rid of it and put it into this corrupt system, which they're trying to keep going. It's difficult to say what will happen exactly, if we'll have a major crisis. He thinks probably one weekend there will be a major move higher, and all the insiders will be long the paper contracts on LBMA and on COMEX, and they'll just cash settle their clients that want physical. So this is also for the big institutional hedge fund people. If you happen to be watching me, yeah, don't trust these banks. If you really want to hold physical gold or silver, you need to find a way to store it outside the banking system. I know hedge funds a lot of times, through regulations, they're only allowed to own paper assets, not physical assets. I guess one solution would be to open a different company, open maybe a private equity, I don't know, company or offshore company, and outside the hedge fund, and deposit gold and silver outside the system. Store it somewhere outside the banking system. But even then, you're not guaranteed. You have to insure it, safety deposit box. You have to do your homework. So yeah, it's not easy keeping hold of your wealth, especially when you're dealing with these banks. So that's what I wanted to talk about this Saturday. Tomorrow, Sunday, I will be doing a live stream at 9 p.m. London. Haven't chosen the subject yet. Probably be a Q&A. You guys can ask me whatever you want, within reason, of course. So that's it for now. It's really hot in London or the whole of England. We've had a heat wave for weeks. We're not used to it. We don't have air conditioning here in the houses like in Florida because this is unusual for us. But anyway, I hope you have a really good weekend. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, please do. Share this video far and wide. And you can also follow me on DTube, on Steemit, and on Twitter. Take care, have a great weekend, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.